All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing His truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. This is your fellow servant, Rokayer from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another impromptu lesson. I don't have a title for this lesson as of right now, but I did come across this article earlier this morning from the Wine Press, and it's entitled Tokenization. BlackRock's Larry Fink says we're at the beginning of the tokenization of all assets, promotes necessity of digital ID to form a social credit score. All right, now as it stands right now, we're only a few steps away from the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip being implemented within society. Okay, because we see all the systems that Esau Edom is starting to set in place in order to accomplish, that goal. All right, systems such as the push for this digital ID, the onset of these CBDCs amongst the banking world, all right, the implementation of these different AI data processing companies such as Palantir. Okay, all of these different systems that are being set in place. And now, like we're reading the tokenization of all assets. All right, with all these different systems that are being set in place, they're all working toward the fulfillment of the prophecy within Revelation 13 and 16. Okay, and there's a lot going on right now. All right, there's a lot going on right now. World War III is on the brink. All right, you have the stripping of these different government assets, which eventually is going to lead to famine and sedition. All right, thus saith the Lord. You also have the persecution arising against the Lord's men for the testimony of Yahushai. Okay, there's a lot going on at one time. All right, but this prophecy is one of the most pivotal prophecies pertaining to end days. All right, the mark of the beast and World War III are two of the main end time prophecies, all right, that we have to understand. Because if you don't understand the system that is being set in place and the moves that the enemy is making, you're going to be caught off guard. All right, that's why, the Lord has set His prophets up, on the watchtower to continually watch and warn of the different moves that the enemy is making and to make sense of it. We're here to make sense of what's going on the earth through the prophecies of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, because it's all been laid out. But without further ado, let's just hop straight into it. I wanted to get a couple, I wanted to read a little bit of this article. But before I get into that, I wanted to get into this, all right, because I looked up the definition of tokenization, and it says tokenization is a process of replacing sensitive data with a non-sensitive equivalent called a token for security purposes. All right, it says how it works. Data security and payments. It says how it works. A unique token is generated to represent sensitive information, such as a credit card number. This token is used for transactions, while the original data is stored in a secure vault. Benefits: it reduces risk. If a token is compromised, it has no value to criminals because it cannot be used to conduct fraudulent transactions. It enhances security, and it so-called simplifies compliances. It can help businesses reduce their liability and comply data protection regulations. And really all this is doing, all this is another way for Esau Edom to tighten his grip on the world, society. Okay, because by accessing or being able to access and control all of this data, essentially he will become the God in the earth, which is his whole plan in the beginning. Our 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, tells us that his whole enterprise, his end goal is to establish himself as God in the earth. Matter of fact, let's get it. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And verse 3 says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who has now been revealed to be none other than Esau Edom, the so-called white man, and chiefly the elites of Edom. All right, going into Amalek, your small hatters. all right, and those who control the resources and mismanage the resources. It says, who opposeth and exalt himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. All right, and how is he going about to establish this Godhead? By the implementation of technology. All right, this biotechnological war that he set out or waging against the world. That's how he's going about to establish his Godhead. Because by being able to track, trace, and surveil everything, essentially he'll be omnipotent or omnipresent. And really omnipotent, because he'll be able to cut that chip off at any time if you're not complying. All right. Which goes into the whole social credit score system in general. All right. Being able to ostracize you from society. But we'll get into that. All right. But it basically allows him to become the Godhead in the earth, where you can't move without him. He knows everywhere. He knows every transaction you make. You can't buy and sell without him. All right. You can't live without him. All right. This is what he's trying to accomplish. And like it says in Second Corinthians, the 2nd chapter, in the 11th verse, it says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. All right. And we're not ignorant of anything that the so-called white man has going on. All right. We're fully aware of what the hell is going on in the planet Earth. All right. Because the Lord has given us the eye salve to see, to understand, and to really break these things down clearly, so that, the elect, Lord willing, we be at our number, may be edified, and be able to prepare themselves mentally and spiritually for what's getting ready to come down. All right, but it says tokenization, BlackRock's Larry Fink. And when you get into that company, BlackRock, I had this video queued up, just to give a quick summary of that whole company, because that's one of the most wicked companies there is in this world. All right, BlackRock is behind some of the most wicked enterprises that we've seen thus far. Let's play a little bit of it.
This is a company most people have never heard of, and this company quite literally owns the world. Most US banks are controlled by BlackRock. BlackRock owns all the major pharmaceutical companies. BlackRock owns most of the mainstream media, and BlackRock oversees roughly 10% of all stocks traded worldwide. And this company is now taking over governments. All of this has allowed BlackRock to amass $10 trillion in assets. Yes, trillion. BlackRock is worth half of America's total GDP. It's so crazy that the US and Chinese government now rely on BlackRock to escape recessions, with BlackRock's founder and CEO now sitting on the boards of the influential Council on Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum. In the words of Henry Kissinger, whoever controls the money controls the world, and no other company in history has had this much global influence. And what's even crazier is that BlackRock did this in just 34 years. But you want to know the best part? You've probably never heard of them for a reason which will become clearer later on, because after you watch this video, you will soon understand.
All right, so that just gives you a little quick summary, without having to go super deep into it. All right, but it summarizes, basically the wickedness of that company, and how they control basically all of the assets worldwide, and majority of the assets worldwide, which is why, they can't fool us, into thinking that, we're trying to, fight for society. You have some Edomites that are, elite Edomites who are, for the people and so on. So fuck all that. We already understand who's behind it all. You trace the money. All right, it leads back into Esau, Edom, and it leads back to these wicked enterprises that he's been performing for years. And now it's all being exposed because we're at the end. We're at the end at this point. The Lord has caused this, rose up this great information age for a reason. All right. And a part of that reason is to cast down all of the veils that Esau Edom has placed upon society, man, and upon this world. Truth is starting to destroy and dismantle all of the different secret councils that Esau Edom has established, including these different companies, man. All right. But you see the control, all right, that this company has over the world. So as they make this statement, you best believe that this is one of the steps that Edom is starting to take now. All right. Because they moved to the tune this company. It says BlackRock Larry Fink says we're at the beginning of the tokenization of all assets, promotes necessity of digital ID to form a social credit score. And I also wanted to touch on that social credit score because you have that going on right now, that system set up in China, all right, in which I have it right here on Google. I typed in, how does China's social credit score work? It says China's social credit system compiles data from various sources. Hey, well, I mean, what was just implemented, Plantier, all right, AI data surveillance company that was designed to collect data on the American populace and to basically create files, on the different Americans, Babylonians. It says China's social credit system compiles data from various sources to access trustworthiness or to assess trustworthiness of individuals and companies. All right, and that's exactly what's being set up here. And it's exactly what the Lord warned us of in Revelation 13. Because what happens over there in China with this social credit score or system is if you're deemed untrustworthy, all right, by that government, whether you continuously breaking laws, you speak out against the government, you jaywalking, what happens is they basically ostracize you from that society. Because the lower your social credit score is, the different the lower your social credit score is, the less access you have to different amenities and luxuries within that society. When people with low social credit scores can't live in certain areas, they can't access certain schools, they can't access certain jobs. Okay, and this is all due to that system that's set in place. And they have a very advanced artificial intelligence network over there. They have, I believe it was like 100 cameras to every person last time I checked, but that was years ago. But they have like 100 cameras to every person to track and to trace every movement that you make, and they have facial recognition. All right, so they know exactly who you are. They know exactly the crime that you're committing. They know exactly the offense that you're committing, and that offense goes on your social credit score. And the lower your social credit score, the less access you have in that society, and that's exactly what Esau is setting up. It says compile data, but it is not single unified national system. Which it says the data source is a system gathers information from a wide range of sources, including government records, financial, criminal, tax, traffic, private companies, purchase history, online activity, and surveillance technology, facial recognition. Okay, and all this whole system, first is being tested over there, but now it's going to migrate its way over here to America, Babylon the Great. And when it migrates its way over here to America, Babylon the Great, it's not going to stop at a digital ID. The end goal is going to be the RFID microchip ultimately. All right, thus saith the Lord. But this is the onset, like he said, the beginning of that technology being implemented. It says, small merchants who rely more on cashless payments with detailed traceable paper trails get better access to working capital loans. In effect, digital footprints are the new credit scores. It says earlier this year, World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab was effectively forced out of his own globalist group he founded decades ago. Ascending to Schwab's role, Andre Hoffman, a Swiss billionaire. I'm going to read down. It says, the WEF we know is the controversial group that tells us that we, among many other controversial things, will own nothing and be happy by 2030. All right. And how are they going about that? Once again, by this technological revolution. Okay. You will own nothing and be happy. Basically, all of the resources, all of the assets will be tokenized. But you will be happy because, with a high credit score, you can have access to the best of amenities. There won't be any more, rich, poor. There won't be any more, schisms and crime. It'll be a utopia, or so he thinks. What he's setting up is a dystopia. This is madness, complete madness on every facet. Let me see. It says, the world is more fragmented and complex than ever, but the need for a platform that brings together business, government, and civil society has never been greater. We believe the forum can serve as a unique catalyst for cooperation, one that fosters trust, identifies shared goals, and turns dialogue into action. We remain optimistic. Trying to see. It says something about right. Okay, it says this brings us to tokenization. All right, as we have discussed in the 2 previous issues of Revive the Table, tokenization is the new monetary financial system quietly transforming the world. All right, it says quietly transforming the world because these things are happening behind people's back. This is a quiet enterprise that Esau is going about to establish, because if he didn't do it quietly, there'll be a huge uproar about it. People wouldn't advocate for the loss of their freedoms, because people understand what this is. The people understand the implications of this technology. Is going to mean less freedom and more control for the government. But in order to escape that sedition, in order to escape that pushback, they're doing these things quietly. They're slowly and gradually implementing these different systems. It says, digitalizing all assets and money in the form of a digital, trackable, traceable, permission token traded on blockchain ledgers. All right, and this is what the prophets have been saying, starting with our elders, apostles, a great millstone, and their elders, for generations, for years. This is what Revelation, the 13th chapter, was talking about. This is what John the Revelator saw on the Isle of Patmos. This system, he saw this system, man. And it's plain as day at this point. It's plain as day. At this point, really, all there is to do is to watch it come to pass. Don't even have to go into super deep into the breakdowns anymore, because it's happening right before our eyes. There's no more speculation. There's no more debating. This is what it is, man. Here it is from the mouth of one of the most powerful devils in this world. Concerning, money, as concerning money wise. It's telling you the next step is the digitalizing of all assets and money in the form of a digital, trackable, and traceable permission token, which is going to be accessed on that RFID microchip. Come on. This is it. We're only a few stages away, man. All right, and it's important to understand this, and it's important to understand that our nourishment and our life comes from Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai. Esau has no power over our life. With this system being set in place, all right, the Lord is going to give us a way out. The Lord is going to cause us, all right, to overcome this devil. Lord willing, we're the elect. This isn't the end all be all for the elect. This is just a small schism. All right, and Esau's wet dream is going to be dismantled at a moment. With that being said, that's really all I had. Lord, when satisfying to your elect, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakakudash, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well Grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. Shalom. Stay up.